So welcome back. Welcome back, everyone. We're here at something copious, something capacious, something Cajunga. Chris and I were actually laughing about this a couple of minutes ago. I think we need to come up with a new way to open every episode rather than me just saying welcome back, but because I had brain fog right there, we'll rely on the old standard for the episode and hopefully have something a little more cleverful and entertaining for you next time. As most people who know me know, I'm a giant comic book dork, and I told you guys the story last time about my grandmother taking me to the comic book store and starting a lifelong appreciation for the character of Superman, and then making me the costume, although that asshole right there tried to kill me last week. Probably should have just thrown him in the trash, but that just seems a little extreme for what was an accident. So he gets to stay for now. And over the years, being a comic book dork has yielded great things, and it has yielded less than great things, because there are characters that are amazing who, depending on the writing team and depending on the artist drawing the book, things can work out very well or things can work out very terribly. There's been Superman stories that they've written that I thought, well, damn, that was a great idea, and Superman stories they've written where I thought, well, damn, that was a terrible idea. What were you thinking? And that is strictly staying within the realm of comic books. That is not me venturing back again into the world of Zack Snyder's films or anybody else who's tackled a Superman film project, but strictly within the world of comic books. And it's not just him. That's every character. There's good characters that were in what I felt were bad stories, and then there were characters I don't pay that much attention to who were in great stories.
I'm with you.
And that can entail many things, and so many things go into making a great comic book. The writing is a giant piece of that. The art is another big piece of that, because if you don't like the art, you're not really going to care about the storytelling. It's hard to stay when one of those two balances is not right.
Right.
Or at least it's always been that way for me. And I, when comic books were a lot cheaper, when they were not almost $6 an issue for 20 to 25 pages of art and story, it was easier to say, oh, well, I like the cover, here's 10 cents, and
Go on about your day.
go on about your day. Now, when it's almost $6, like, you really got to be able to count on what you're spending your money on to be worth it.
Right.
Times are tough in 25.
You ain't wrong.
And so, that being said, the comic book series that we're going to review today, anybody that follows DC is probably going to know what I'm talking about. It was called 52, and it came out back in 2006, I believe. And why this is noteworthy is that the story of the comic books takes place inside of a fictional year, start to finish. That's why it's called 52, because it takes place across a 52-week calendar, and it was released on a 52-week calendar. Every week of the year saw the release of an issue, one right after the other, 1 to 52.
That's pretty cool.
I mean, really, I had never seen a project of that ambition.
Right.
That it was such innovative storytelling, and I was very intrigued that they wanted to try something like that, because anything can go wrong and screw the whole deal. Like the writing team just goes into an absolute tailspin, and things fall apart, or the art team suffers an incredible setback, and they're like, well, we just lost our entire 8 weeks of our backlog of work because somebody's computer crashed that we had everything saved on.
Right.
And you get into a scramble, and all of a sudden the project just goes completely sideways.
Right.
Now, as far as I know, they never did it, at least whatever they're willing to admit to, because everybody can, the industry's always like, the industry runs perfect, there are no problems, everybody's happy. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, oh no,
Yeah.
for whatever reason. And, and admitting to those failings, to those setbacks, to those production problems of whatever your production is, hurts the final product in a way.
For sure.
And it's like, oh, well, we didn't have all this together, and whoever's on the other side of that equation here is, you didn't have all that together. Well, now I'm not interested in this product anymore. I don't want to spend my money on it. It's not this perfect thing that I erroneously believed it was going to be, so screw you guys. You don't need my money. Business side of it, we can't afford to lose people's money.
Have to have it.
They have to believe in the illusion that things are perfect.
Right.
And anyway, forgetting all that, because that's just more long-winded, a more long-winded way of saying that for whatever reason, they're never going to tell you about whatever issues they might have had producing the thing you're investing in.
Yeah.
And so, borrowing that logic, I never heard about them having massive production problems getting this series put out. To my recollection, everything got released when it was supposed to. All 52 issues came out the week they were supposed to release. Now, it's been 19 years ago, so maybe the details are a little fuzzy, but
Nothing stands out.
Nothing stands out.
Yeah.
And maybe other people who were following at the time, because we were all kind of excited because DC just did Infinite Crisis, which was this massive event book, which was a sequel to Crisis on Infinite Earths in a lot of ways, which came out 20 odd years earlier from that point. So it came out in like the mid 80s somewhere. I don't have the exact period because I haven't done the research, but I know it was sometime in the mid 80s they released Crisis on Infinite Earths. And then 20 years later we do Infinite Crisis, which was a sequel to that story.
Okay.
And so we just came off this massive event book where just line-wide changes to some parts of the lore. And so it was like, man, we just did Infinite Crisis, and now they're saying, hey, here's 52, this incredible storytelling innovation that y'all haven't seen us do before.
Right.
And I, and in relationship to that, like, DC was just doing a lot of different stuff. They had so many different things going on, because while they were telling the 52 story, they also had what they called 1 year later going on, which was basically telling things that happened after 52 would end.
Okay.
And it's like, so you're basically seeing the characters at a point after the year has already been over, and watching that year is going to tell you how they ended up in the position they were in when the 1 year later stories started.
Okay.
And it's like, okay, Superman loses his powers across the course of, well, he lost them at the end of Infinite Crisis, and he didn't have them for the entirety of 52. Well, suddenly, at the beginning of 1 year later, he starts getting them back. He's gotten them back again, and it's like, okay, well, what's he been doing this whole time that he hasn't, where he's been struck? They've slowly, well, 52 tells that story.
Right.
And it did it for, what they call the big three, Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman. They were all absent for 52, so all these other superheroes had to come in and be the face of DC, while Superman didn't have any powers and Batman was on a pilgrimage to rediscover what it meant to be Batman. And I don't remember what Wonder Woman's deal was, but she was also flying under the radar.
Okay.
So that the innovation and the ambition of the project were intriguing to me. So that's kind of what piqued my interest enough that I was like, all right, I'm gonna start reading this and see if I like it.
Was you reading it as it came out?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Every week I went to the comic book store, and I am not big on collecting single issues unless they are collected in no other way.
Right.
I will usually go for the
large format version.
The trade paperbacks or the graphic novels, and I kind of hate doing that because 10 years later they're printing the really big ones, what they call the omnibus editions, which in theory they collect the entire run, the entire line. Like 52 was collected in an omnibus edition, and it had all 52 issues in one book about that big.
Right.
And
the Dictionary of Comics.
Yeah. They're big boys, heavy boys.
Yeah.
And I collected a lot of those, and just without going completely down a rabbit hole, which I will save for another day, about collecting those and then trying to minimize my physical footprint. I collected all of them like that. That was one thing where I went out and I bought every single issue as it came out because I got hooked.
Okay.
And I wanted to read that story as it was releasing. Like, it was important for me to
indulge.
Yeah. I'd probably be a little pressed to think of other, because I used to collect single issues back when I was a teenager, and they hadn't collected them yet, and I collected them as they were releasing, but as they put them out in collected editions, I would swap them out. I'd take the single issues to half price, and it's like, well, I got the actual collected edition here now, so
right.
Scooch on out of here, kind of. But
do you feel like it makes it easier to keep track of your comics, though, or to store them and things like that, versus it being a small paperback comic? It's an actual hardcover book.
Well, the comic books release the same way that like regular books do. Half the time they will release a hardcover, and then 7 months later they will release a paperback version.
Okay.
And it's got to be one of them big thick ones for me to go after a physical copy anyway, because now that I have Kindles, I try to get all my comic books there, so I am not filling up the house where I need the space for my fiance's possessions as well as mine, or my children's possessions as well as mine, or
right.
God forbid, we have to move for one reason or another, and I have to accommodate, I have to accommodate with even less space
Right.
for whatever reason. And so a lot of my physical comic books I got rid of to usher in an age of putting things on Kindle, which has and hasn't worked out in some ways. But staying on 52 and having discussed, just the ambition of the project, the next clincher was the writing team, which, I mean, I don't know who all out there, what your favorite writers might have been. I know a lot of, I can rattle off a lot of names just because I know the names, but how much of their work have I really ingested? And a lot of the guys that were attached to 52, at least 3 of them that I can name straight offhand, were names that I paid attention to. Like Jeff Johns is one of the biggest comic book writers in the world, and he was actually in charge of DC. He was in charge of DC Comics. He likes the chief creative officer for DC during Zack Snyder's stab at a DC cinematic universe. Like, they were working together at the time. And I don't know if that makes me think less of Jeff Johns or more of Zack. I mean, I would love to think more of Zack Snyder, but without going down that rabbit hole again. So, you had Jeff Johns, who I love a lot of his work. Like, he wrote for The Flash for a long time. He's written for Green Lantern. He wrote a few issues for Justice League. He was on Justice Society, which, was under the JSA imprint there in the late 90s, early 2000s. And he wrote, like, I don't know, 50 or 60 issues of JSA before they handed it off to, like, he had a writing tenure on all the characters that he was attached to at one point or another. Like, he had big, long runs on their label.
Right.
And so that, most of his work, I don't think I've read anything he's written outside of DC's projects, because he's been over at Marvel as well.
Oh, okay.
And God knows where else. I know what he's done at DC, because that's where my heart lies. I mean, I like Marvel comic books, but I got in the game on DC stuff.
Right.
And then you had Grant Morrison, who wrote JLA in the early 90s to mid 2000s, and he had a big, giant, long run on JLA. And after 52, he started writing for Batman, and he wrote Batman for a good long minute. And Mark Waid was a part of the writing team, and he wrote on JLA, and he wrote the Kingdom Come story, which I'm not going to try to explain what that is right now. But I want to say that Dan Jurgens was also on that writing team, and he was the one who wrote the Death and Return of Superman story.
Okay.
And, you have this incredible, like, NBA Dream Team lineup of writers whose work was already established and
well known,
whose storytelling I already trusted, right? And so I'm, and I was like, bet. Look at all these guys. This is an absolute fangasm of great writers.
Right.
This cannot fail. This is going to be incredible. And so, and I, paying that little bit of attention, at least as I was doing then, I was like, okay, I'm here for it now.
Yeah.
And And part of the great storytelling apparatus, because you can have a great story, but if you don't have a great art design to go with it, people are only going to invest for so long. I doubt they invest all 52 issues.
Absolutely.
Because I mean, just a blank black page with nothing on it, or nothing that's appealing to the eye, that doesn't service your storytelling in a compelling and interesting way. So I will say I don't remember what the artist names were. I don't remember who did the art. It's
Okay.
probably not that hard to look up, but I don't have those names in front of me.
Right.
And I like the art. I thought, well, this is I'm impressed by all, and I can't describe why art is good.
Right.
I can't describe why, at least not really, why I think something is appealing.
Yeah.
I'm gonna take the words of a smarter man than I am. I don't know why it's good. I just know that I like it.
Yeah.
I don't know what makes it art. I don't know what makes art good. Like why is a thing objectively good art or good cinema or good music?
Yeah.
I know what I like. And so I like the art. And those two relationships just worked out, and they worked out for 52 issues. And so that was an incredible experience to be a part of, especially when it was happening.
Right.
Like to be there on
More or less live, the action.
yeah, to be there on the ground level.
Yeah. You get that anticipation of what's coming for the next episode
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
next whatever issue.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yep. And that's really saying something that I could get in, and that I could enjoy, and that I could participate in the fan experience when it was happening. Because here we are 20 years later, and ultimately to keep old readers engaged and to bring in guys who either don't care, not just guys, but to bring in people who say they've never been big in comic books.
Right.
Or maybe they're like, well, I'm watching all these movies, maybe I should read comic books sometime. So you're constantly trying to bring in a new crowd,
Right.
as well as appeal to the old crowd, the guys who've been here for 30 years, and maybe they're a little disillusioned. Maybe they're like, I don't know about comic books anymore. So you've basically got to bring in the broadest target audience.
Absolutely.
Because if you alienate the guys who have been around forever, God knows what chunk of that money you're going to lose out on.
Yep.
And sometimes I feel like that guy, because there are so many what they call event books that come out that, after you read this, we're starting over, and it's you're going to see a whole new age. It's like we're just going to rewrite the rules for comic books after this event book, and then 6 months to a year later, we're doing it all over again.
Yeah.
And there's just so many event books. It's kind of gotten silly, and it's like, okay, you had Crisis on Infinite Earths, then you had 0 Hour, then you had Infinite Crisis, then you had Identity Crisis, then you had Infinite Crisis, then you had 52, then you had Countdown to Final Crisis, then you had Final Crisis, then you had Flashpoint, then you had Convergence, then you had I can't remember what the one was between Convergence and the next one, but then it's Infinite Frontier, and then it's Dark Crisis on Infinite Earths, and then now they're doing the whole absolute DC universe, and DCKO, and God knows what's going to be beyond that.
Right.
It's like every year there is at least one or two event books that somehow we're going to rewrite human understanding on what it means to be a comic book dork. And I mean, I'm still collecting. I'm still trying to. I don't know that I'm still trying to read, but I'm still collecting. So I guess I'm facilitating an environment where they get my money anyway,
Yeah.
even if I don't necessarily believe in it. So why should they care when they've hooked me regardless? But I figure one of these days, in that somewhere over the rainbow, I'll have time to sit down and an infinite reservoir of time to sit down and read and ingest all of this material
Right.
and decide what I think of it then. But as we discussed last time, time is a currency, and we're all going broke. And I'm not necessarily choosing to sit down and read if that's what I really want to do.
Right.
But I'm still buying all these books, even if I don't really necessarily know how I feel about reading them. Because when you collect, I mean, whether you really want it or not, it's like, well, I have all this other stuff, and if I don't get this, then there's just this hole between the two things that I know something should be there, and it's not, and my OCD brain just can't abide that, right? Yeah. It's like I know that like between Final Crisis and Flashpoint, it's like I know there's something there, and so and I hate it, but it's like, all right, well, it's on sale for $2.
Gotta have it.
Ugh.
Can't beat a sale.
You can't. I mean, what the conversation? I can't remember if we did it while we were recording or not, but we had the conversation where it's like you can't argue with it. You're buying it, even if it's garbage. It's like I think it was our Welcome Back episode. It's like even when video games are on sale, it's like even if they're garbage, it's $2.
Yep.
And you can't argue with it being on sale somehow. Like it just puts like a I don't know, a honey glaze on it for about 20 minutes, where it's like, that's a sale. That's a sale. Let's I forgot it was crap, and I just spent the $3 on for no reason.
That's happened before.
Oh, that's happened so many times. That's probably why my video game library is at the number that it is, because things were on sale.
Yeah.
And it's like someday I'll get around to playing this, and I'll decide how I feel about it then. And I'll just own it so that I can take it off my mental platter, and I'll get back to it later.
Right.
Because there's still like just like 10% of your brain that's curious, even though you've mostly made up your mind. Sidebar, real quick, we actually went through and did the head count on my video games, and across all the different platforms, I think I came up with 518 titles in my library across all the different systems that I own.
Was that you counting, like, say you had a Call of Duty on the Xbox and a Call of Duty on the PlayStation? Does that count as two, or does that count as one?
I believe I excluded titles I somehow had 2 copies of.
Okay.
Like because I've got Modern Warfare 2 on the 360, and I also have the remaster that they released. I have that on PlayStation. So rather than calling that 2 different titles, that's one.
Oh, okay.
That's one title to me. Even though I have 2 copies of it, that's one title.
I'd count a remastered.
You'd count the remaster as a separate title?
Well, I mean, sure. Oh, no, I guess that's a fine line to draw.
Well, I ran into the same problem a couple of different times, because I have like 3 different versions of Metal Gear Solid 3.
Yeah.
because I have Metal Gear Solid 3 Subsistence, which came out as like a special edition that came out on the PS2. And then I have Metal Gear Solid 3 on the Metal Gear Solid Master Collection right here. But I also went out and bought Metal Gear Solid Delta, which is a remaster of Metal Gear Solid 3. And allowing for the counting system that I was using at the time simply to be able to do it without just going through a total mental collapse trying to figure out how to count. I counted that as one title.
Okay, that makes sense actually.
And Ratchet and Clank offers one more example because, like, you know, there was the original Ratchet and Clank. Well, then in 2016, like, to coincide with the Ratchet and Clank movie that came out or was coming out or whatever, they remastered the original game and then, like, basically rebuilt it as a tie-in to the movie that they were releasing.
Okay.
So I just considered that, you know, because I have the Ratchet and Clank HD collection on PS3, and I also have this version right here. I don't know if that lighting's bad, if you can see that or not, but I also have this version, and I just considered that Ratchet and Clank to be one title too, rather than two separate entities. And I didn't count things that I had on both PlayStation and Xbox. It's like, oh, I don't own, you know, it's not two games, it's one game.
One game, yeah.
I tried to count it as, you know, one title for one title rather than two for one.
Right.
And there's a lot there's lots of games. I think I was up to 76 titles that I owned across both systems.
Okay.
Or multiple systems.
Right.
Which may not say how much some of those games, how much I actually liked them, but I bought them at a time where they were both independently on sale. And it's like, well, I've played half a Thief that came out in 2013, and that was on sale for $3 on the PlayStation Store. But then I was going through this whole period where I was like, you know, if I own it physically on one system, or if I own it digitally on one system, then I want to be able to physically represent it on my shelf somehow. So I'd buy it for the opposite system physically, just so I'd have a physical representation on the shelf. Something I could, you know, if I was having like choice paralysis,
yeah,
then I could just like physically look at it.
See it there.
Yeah, and see it there, and that just led to a just decades-long period of insanity where I was constantly moving them back and forth between PlayStation and Xbox, and I'm trying to turn over a new leaf and not do that anymore, and just have it one place and not just keep swapping them back and forth.
Yeah.
Although, so I like Thief was on sale on Xbox because of their Black Friday deal that they've got going on right now.
Yeah, you got some great sales going on right now.
And it was like $3.
Yeah.
And I already had like $1.50 in credit to use.
Blow it all.
So I was like, well, if it's only $3 and I already have $1.50 free, then
why not?
I guess I'll just go ahead and add it to my Xbox library too. Eventually, I'll get around to finishing it.
Yeah.
Which I would have thought that would have been true 12 years ago when the game came out, but.
Well, I don't know if you think this is a topic you can drag on for too much longer or anything, but if you had to pick PlayStation or Xbox, I mean, I know you have both, but like, which one does one trump the other for you?
I used to be able to make this argument and make it pretty definitively back a long time ago. Let's say around the time that Xbox first came out, I was of the school that nothing was going to come out on Xbox that I cared about because it seemed like almost everything was cross-platform.
Right.
Or not cross-platform, they were on platforms simultaneously, and I did not recognize too many console exclusives. And anymore, most of the time, they don't really recognize console exclusive games
Oh, I mean, they
anymore.
don't. Yeah. Just
Like
like they're getting ready to redo that Halo game, and they're going to release it for PS5.
Halo and Gears of War. Well, Gears of War is already out. Halo is apparently coming out for the PlayStation, for PS5.
And who knows if PlayStation doesn't have the same plans that Xbox does to have your Steam library accessible from the next generation console.
Yeah.
So.
So I used to be of a camp.
Yeah.
And I hadn't played Halo yet. And it was a few years. I was like, everything I want coming out, came out on the PS2, and that Xbox controller is just too big and clunky, and it's got too many buttons on it. I'm not realizing at the time the button count's the same. That's just a fallacy that I invented in my teenage mind, where I was like, what's wrong with you? Of course I don't want this. This is garbage. And I believed that for many years. And it wasn't until I got out of high school and I was working at Meyer, and a buddy of mine that I was running around with at the time, he basically challenged me, and he's like, all right, I'll make you a deal. I forget exactly what the nature of the deal was, but he wanted me to play Halo with him. And he's like, if you play Halo and you don't because I was like trying to collect there was a bunch of things out on DVD that I was trying to collect at the time, and I believe that I was trying to get the seasons of Charmed, and they were all like on sale.
Okay.
Or something.
Right.
And he's like, if you don't absolutely love Halo, then I'll get the whatever 3 or 4 seasons worth of this it is that you're trying to collect right now. I will buy them for you if you don't love Halo. Because he was really trying to make a point.
Yeah.
And so, we go over to his place one evening, and I don't remember if he was trying to sell me on a campaign, because they had split screen campaign,
yep.
I think. And
I don't know about the first one, but
I can't remember.
Yeah, me neither.
I feel like it does, but I can't say empirically right off the cuff right now. But anyway, he was trying to sell me, and so we played Halo, whether that was split screen co-op campaign or maybe we played multiplayer. I don't remember, but it worked. Because I played Halo when I was like, crap. Now I have to go out and buy an Xbox. So then I eventually did, and it was like, man, Xbox has Halo, Xbox has Gears of War. Like, Xbox is kind of where it's going on.
Yeah.
And I just started being on the Xbox camp for a while, to the point I said, what do I need a PS3 for? And then they said, hey, Metal Gear Solid 4 is coming out.
There it is.
What do you mean PS3? What do you mean Blu-ray player? I got Xbox, man. I got the HD DVD. Because the adult film industry backed Blu-ray, that is why, at least as the understanding I had at the time, that's why Blu-ray won the HD.
The battle
in the HD war.
Yeah, I remember that being huge when the 360s were coming out, because they came with the
HD DVD.
Yeah, but it wasn't installed. You had to buy it separately.
Yeah, you had to buy it. You had to buy a thing. Like you had to get the
disk drive.
You had to get the 3 of diamonds to be able to. If you'll remember the whole reference from a couple episodes ago, that.
Of course, I don't.
Am I the only one that pay? Don't you go back and listen to our shows?
I've probably listened to them more than you have.
But we were talking about the new console that comes out, and if it wasn't flight ready when it came out, and I had to, you had to go out and you had to buy a card, you had to buy this, you had to buy the other, and I was like, oh well, if I need red, blue, green, triangle, circle, square, and the three of diamonds to get all this to work, then so that's what the reference was.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I'm with you. I'm with you.
And so and it's like which console do I want which game on? Back then I couldn't argue over. I was arguing with myself over which console was going to better service my needs, and it's like, why do you need to choose?
Right.
Why not have both? And maybe that makes me a video gaming bigamist or a video gaming Mormon. I'm not sure what the technical term is there.
Sounded like some first world problems to me.
Damn it. My life is truly over because I can't decide which console I need to play more. These are the real problems our society is facing. But and eventually that was what I struck, because I kept flip flopping back and forth, and this is, eventually I got stuck on why not just play both,
Right.
and so what's unfortunate, and I'm gonna tell a story here. Who'd have thought?
Hey, I'm here for story time.
Storytime theater. Pay attention. This is important. There'll be a quiz on it later.
Tickets to you.
When I was rocking a 360, I did not have, because they released 13 different generations, and depending on which one you got, they either came with hard drives or they did not.
Oh yeah.
Or
Okay.
you had to buy external hard drives to attach onto them.
Yeah.
And I did not. I, of less generous means, did not have the ability to go spend $200 on an external memory block,
For sure.
external hard drive, whatever. And so I was rocking a memory, one of those little flash drive memory sticks for a good long minute. And I have a cousin who, he lives out in California, but everyone, at least once a year, he was coming into town and visiting all of us here at home in Indiana.
Sure.
And he went to the effort of making time for everybody. Nathan, I miss you, bud. It's been a while since you've been able to come into town, and it could be argued that it's not like anybody made the effort to go out and see him in California.
Right.
Which is unfortunate, and I realize now that must have drove him crazy in some ways. It's like, man, I've spent all this money to go out to Indiana and see everybody, but nobody ever wants to come see me.
Yeah.
But we did one, like in 2003, we did one year, like we took a trip out west, and because I think my mother had a bowling tournament. It's like, well, while we're out, and let's just go out to California and see Nathan.
Yeah.
And while we were in San Diego visiting, he and I went to see Terminator 3 because it was in theaters at the time.
Okay.
And so he's kind of showing me around San Diego a little bit, like the San Diego nightlife, and I'm thinking, damn, I wish I was 21. Because golly.
A lot of fun.
Those,
Looks like a lot of fun anyway.
it looked like a lot of fun. A lot of 21 and over fun. Shit. But sub rabbit hole aside, while he was in town, he and I were spending time together. Like, we were getting ready to go watch a movie, and we had a little bit of time to kill before our movie would have started. So I was like, well, what do you want to do until the movie starts? And it's like, well, let's go to the mall and maybe walk around GameStop, just because who doesn't like to window shop? I mean, just to dream.
I mean, you don't catch sales if you don't window shop.
sometimes, I mean, you never know what kind of gold you're gonna find until you start chasing rainbows. But so we went to GameStop, and just as a matter of curiosity, because they had all of them behind the counter. They had all their external hard drives refurbished or brand new. And so I talked to the gentleman behind the counter, and I was like, "So what's the prices on the external hard drives?" And I knew they were all going to be beyond my abilities,
Right.
but it's like just so I know what am I
Ballpark.
what am I looking at? And he's like, "Well, you got blah blah blah, yada yada," and I don't know what a third funny little
Bingo bongo.
bingo bango bongo. And I was like, yep, that's about what I thought. I'm screwed. I'm never gonna find happiness. Life is over. First world problems. And I walked away, and meanwhile, my cousin Nathan, he's standing, and I've never forgot this story, and I never will. And he's standing at the counter, and my sad puppy dog face is just there. I haven't gotten rid of it yet. I'm dejected because I haven't been able to pull off this miracle why would I have even thought that I could pull it off?
Right.
Because I definitely don't have $100, let alone hundreds of dollars.
Yeah.
And anyway, I look over, and he points up, and the guy grabs one of them off the shelf and pulls out his wallet and pays for it. And I'm kind of ear hustling on their convert, and it was one of the brand new ones, the big ones.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, he was telling me about his setup back out in California. Maybe he needed one. But I thought he said that he already had like the flight model versions of it all, that he didn't even. So I'm just like, all right, what's going on? Is it for what's going on?
Yeah.
And then no sooner do we get to walk out of the store, he puts that sack in my hands. He's like, here you go. Brand new. 250, whatever it was. I don't remember what the specifications were on the external hard drive.
Was it an external, or was it one you were supposed to plug into the top of the console
It was.
for the first 360 that came out?
It might have been the one you were supposed to plug into the top.
Yeah. Those were 80 and 120 until they came out with the Elites, I think.
Well, then it was 120.
When they came out with the Elites, I think they went up to 250.
But he got me, that son of a bitch. Like he put it in my hands, and I was like, "What's this for?" And he just shrugged. He's like,
Because it's Tuesday.
"Yeah." I always say, that's it, not Tuesday, but I always, that's what I always say. It's like, because it's Thursday.
Yeah.
And I said that for so long that it was actually paid off. It was actually paid off for me, because there's one of the animated Batman films called Batman and Harley Quinn, where they have to team up, and he basically tells her why he can't trust her.
Yeah.
And he's like, I can't trust that you won't stab me in the back because something else, or because it's Thursday. And I died laughing, because it's like fun. It's
The universe has delivered.
Yeah, my own joke is being used in a movie, and so I always call things because it's Thursday.
Yeah.
Because for no other reason other than.
Oh, see, I had to say Tuesday because I felt like if I'd have said Thursday, I'd have owed you money for copyright infringement or something like that.
Oh, please, I'm not Paris Hilton. I can't copyright a phrase that people use every day.
She did that?
She did that with "That's hot." Like, she copyrighted the phrase "That's hot." I don't know how you would enforce such a copyright. Like, how can you possibly copyright a sequence of words that
Yeah,
is
I don't know.
ubiquitous
You got me on that one.
that people use all the time.
I get like names and products, but that doesn't make any sense. Just regular conversating terms and phrases. You got me there.
What we all is that why the economy's so fucked up? We're all secretly paying her a quarter every time we just on the idea that we might say that's hot two or
Yeah.
three times a day.
I'm
So
gonna need you to quit saying it before she shuts us down.
man,
You said it 3 times already. We're
at
going bankrupt.
least I got to come up with another. We got to avoid it because this is a fledgling channel and we cannot afford a copyright lawsuit.
Right.
But so he got me this external hard drive, paid for it, handed it to me, and I had it for a couple of years. And I also had to have one of the cooling fans,
Who didn't?
just because everybody was talking about the red ring of death issues that they were having, whether they could Frankenstein them back to life themselves, or if they had to send them to Microsoft to get Microsoft to be like, whatever they found
Whatever they
doing
say.
their own inspections. And
Yeah.
anyway, a little more long-winded wandering here. Eventually, I got the red ring of death on my Xbox,
Yeah, you did.
and so I called Microsoft and I was like, "Hey, what do I do?" And the woman that I spoke to through customer service is like, "Well, you can either send us all of your hardware and we can take a look at it, which could cost several $100s,
Yeah.
or you can go out and buy a brand new Xbox for somewhat less."
Yeah.
And anyway, to cut some of the meat off of the fat here, I was disappointed enough in the customer service that I boycotted Xbox for a long time, years, and I was like, no, this is crap. I hate you for this because my cousin spent a lot of good money.
Well, the whole ordeal left a sour taste in people's mouth
I
because you're
was
charging $200 to fix my Xbox. Or you're gonna just tell me to go get a new one, and it's like, well, how do I know the new one's gonna work any better than the one I got? How do I know I'm not gonna get the red rings? This was before they came out with the second of 13 versions they made at 360, but
yeah. I was disappointed in them for a long time, and I was like, I don't care if we're on Halo 7, Gears of War 9, and they are winning they are winning gaming awards like crazy. I don't care. I'm not going back to Xbox. And I had to eat my words. But we're unfortunately going to run out of time. We're going to have to consider this a part 1 to an eventual part 2. And I promise we will finish these stories. But today we're going to have to call it here and say goodbye. And we will see you next time.
pleasure talking to you guys.